All right, ladies, welcome to our second episode of Three Docs in a Dumpster Fire.
The official one.
It's been
on
a minute.
Camera. Mm-hmm. Yeah, sorry about that. Took us a minute to get it together, but now we're here.
Yes.
And in a much more professional way, so it's exciting.
Yeah. So today's conversation is centered around big pharma, broken promises, and how it has shaped healthcare today.
Yeah, in a big way.
Hold me back.
First of all, how's everyone been?
Good. So for those that have only heard us, this is Dr. Babb, Dr. Rishwain, Dr. Grove. Now they get to see us in person. So yeah, let's talk about drugs.
Your favorite topic?
Our favorite topic.
Yeah. So the pharmaceutical industry has taken a hold of the healthcare system in multiple ways, very complex system. But what would you say is the biggest effect that you've seen on your day-to-day practice, I guess?
I think there's a lot of things that we've all noticed that have changed in healthcare since pharmaceutical companies have essentially taken us hostage in a not so joking sense. One thing that I think is really imperative is to knock down the myth that patients think we get paid to prescribe drugs, like we're getting some kind of kickback from pharmaceuticals. Yes. And I think it's really important to note that that's a fair concern, because when the opioid crisis was happening, there were doctors getting kickbacks to prescribe oxycodone and all these things. But that does not occur, and we obviously have no incentive financially or otherwise to prescribe meds or not prescribe meds. And so I think there's been a fair amount of distrust in us as providers, because people still are convinced that we're doing things for nefarious reasons, right? Mm-hmm. So I think that's an important thing to say just flat off the bat, like, we don't get paid. We're not doing this for anybody else besides the benefit of our patient. And when the costs of those meds are so astronomical that we can't even prescribe them, it's really ridiculous that our patients are suffering as a result, because they can't get the meds they deserve and they need that we feel are required.
I get really frustrated at patients coming to me with the pharmacist having told them, your doctor needs to, get this medicine. It's like, the doctor is the one who prescribed the medicine in the first place. The fact that you don't have it has nothing to do with my wishes. My wishes were enacted when I prescribed the medicine. Mm-hmm. The kind of the push and pull that happens there, and the propensity for sometimes pharmacies laying it back on the doctor is really frustrating to me, because if we had our way, it would be meds were free, and when I prescribe them, they show up at your door. That would be the end of the story, and that is very, very far from the truth right now. Does
it trigger you if I say prior auth?
I know, prior auth.
Prior auths are what is required most of the time by an insurance company for a patient to even get the meds. So we prescribe it, the insurance says that's expensive, we don't want to pay for it, and then kicks it back to the doctors to do what's called a prior authorization. And the issue with that is that, well, most doctors' offices are too busy to even do them. We do them, and most of the times our patients get the meds, but it's just another step to make it more difficult for people to get what they need. Mm-hmm. So the drug companies have come up with all kinds of fun ways to make it difficult for people to get the meds that they need.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it's important also to define what big pharma is, because it's not necessarily just this pie in the sky like entity, right? It is a complex system that has a lot of players in it, whether it be private pharmaceutical companies, universities, what we refer to as PBMs, which are basically the middlemen who are helping, universities and some of these smaller private pharmaceutical companies to negotiate prices between insurances to lower the cost for the insurance. what the insurance will pay for it. But there's been pretty good moments in time where we see that the cost of drugs have been driven mainly by a handful of reasons, and that is
Greed.
I mean, there's really no other way to put it.
And that albuterol should have gone up. You know, there's so
Yeah.
many life-saving medications that we can name that.
Insulin has gone up
EpiPens.
1,000%,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. And that is all, greed. And you saw especially with albuterol and EpiPens, that people made such a fuss, rightly so, and therefore the companies backed off and said, okay, fine, now we'll pay for it. So it's very clear that it's not actually the cost of making the drug, it's the cost that they want to take home in their pockets, and it's at the expense of the patients. And that's probably why the pharmaceutical companies in general are one of the most hated entities in medicine, because it's about greed and it's not about what's best for our patients.
Yeah, prior authorization for albuterol, like oxygen, helpful. I mean, what do you even write there, right? I mean, sometimes when, prior authorization for insulin, it's like you almost feel like, what kind of crazy world am I living in that I have to explain why insulin would be needed or albuterol would be needed? It's just, it's maddening.
Well, and prior authorizations have become a tool utilized by the insurance company to deny coverage.
100%.
Right? To say like, oh, it's like goes with the statins, right? Like, sorry, we're not going to cover Crestor, but we'll cover lovastatin. Or we're going to cover sertraline, we're not going to cover Paxil, like when you're talking about drugs that are in the same class. So it becomes very frustrating because as a physician, I don't know what managed plan an individual has and what their benefits cover and whether or not they're going to cover this.
It changes every year.
And it changes.
I always tell my patients, well, after the first of the year, I guess we'll see which drug company offered the most money to which insurance company so that we know what you can take. And it's not based on whether it's the best medicine for you. It's based on which company gave them the most money. And that's where I think the ridiculousness of this is that every year it's changing and we can't even keep up with these different, and sometimes it's not a good change. So it's like, they're not equal. We should be able to prescribe what's best, not what's afforded by the insurance. That's the problem. That's the biggest problem, I think.
Yeah, and then it ties into this idea that the healthcare system in America straddles a line with one foot in government regulations and one foot in consumerism or the marketplace and capitalism, and neither has a strong hold. And so therefore we're constantly having to exist in two different worlds where we have government regulations over certain things, and then this capitalist marketplace that controls other things like the cost of drugs. And so the question then becomes does big pharma help keep Americans healthy? I mean,
I think a lot of patients, rightly so, believe that we push meds on patients just as doctors. In our practice, obviously, that's not something that we do at all. But yes, I mean, medications have a place, antibiotics, medicines that are for diabetes or things that really help to keep somebody healthy. I think
Chemotherapy. I would say in our careers, like the difference in research and development and the meds that have come out of oncology is like it's huge. It's huge. It saves lives, and it's there is innovation that is generated in this country that is unique and special, that ends up benefiting a lot of other people. But there's also the argument of maintaining chronic illness as the expectation for most Americans, right? That, people live on these meds for decades and decades, not just oncology, but just meds in general. And I don't know, it's pros and cons.
Yeah. I think it's hard. Yeah.
Well, what we've seen is this concept of patent evergreening, which is this idea that these patents, like for insulin, like you brought up, is a great example where I don't think a lot of people know this, but the original discovery of insulin happened in 1922. And the team that founded it ended up selling the patent for $1 because they believed that insulin belonged to the world. It was not something that they owned. So you would think that that would mean that it would be affordable for everyone. But the problem is this idea of patent evergreening is this concept where you change the structure of the drug just ever so slightly so that every time the patent becomes available for, to become generic, it's changed just enough so that's not the case. And so where in 1996, we were talking about maybe $20 for a vial of insulin has now risen to $350. And these are life-saving drugs. Like these aren't things that are a choice for many, many individuals. Now, on top of the patent evergreening, we also see the changes that have happened at the federal government at the level where academics and universities have been a huge player in drug research and development, while they are usually given money through grant systems by the federal government. And it used to be that federal money only allowed for patents to be owned by the government, right? So if a university used grant money to patent a drug, that patent was then owned by the federal government. But that changed, and now universities are allowed to then become the seller or the leaser of this said patent, and it's playing into how universities are becoming rich as well and why they seek out research and developers and some of these physicians. We could go into a whole podcast on its own about how universities acquire certain physicians for R&D to make millions upon millions of dollars. But again, that cost is being
At the cost of the patient.
Yeah. Passed down to the patient.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the question becomes is how does a new model evolve? How do you, we need the research. We need these drugs for the most part. I mean, let's not kid ourselves. We see moments in time in which the trajectory of lifespan has changed as a result of these discoveries. Insulin was one of them. Vaccines were another. Antibiotics were one. I think we will have seen that statins have significantly changed morbidity, mortality for people with underlying conditions in the cardiovascular system. GLPs are another one that we are
Be an interesting one.
right? But for the very first time since I think, I don't want to be on camera saying this, but I think it was 1977, we started seeing obesity rates climb in America. This past year was the first year in which we saw a decline. And so for the past almost 50 years, we've seen this uptick and now we're seeing it go down. But the question is it sustainable? Will people be able to continue to afford these drugs?
Well, and there's plenty of people that have made profit off of the GLPs. There's clinics that are set up everywhere, charging an arm and a leg to get these medications in an off-label use. And that's because it's not covered. If that was covered, it wouldn't be that you had to pay all this money. And this is a medication that can actually improve your lifespan. You get rid of your obesity, you often get rid of your high cholesterol, your hypertension, your diabetes, your heart disease. So you'd think you'd want to pay for that because it actually would make people healthier, which would keep people out of the hospital and actually decrease our healthcare costs. And so the question becomes, well, what are we really trying to do with our medical system if we're not incentivizing health? What is the point here? What are we really after? And that's where I think us as physicians have the biggest troubles. It's like, well, we want to focus on prevention and improving patients' lives, and the system is set up to make that difficult. And almost actually the antithesis of that. They want people to be chronically ill, so they take meds, so they pay money, so they go in the hospital, even though it's not at the benefit of the actual population. in healthcare.
Well, we all have stories of situations or, experiences where we've had patients like ration drugs. I had a patient very early in my career whose mom was rationing insulin for their type 1 diabetic child. And that child kept bouncing in and out of the hospital. And so it's like, what do you look at the taxpayer burden of that, right? Of like having multiple ICU stays for this pediatric patient over the course of,
not to mention the health of the child, right?
and what that does to the psyche of the kiddo of being hospitalized, missing school, So the biggest issue that I see, as is the case in most things in America's healthcare system that is in a for-profit system, is the fact that our priorities are malaligned.
Correct.
And until that changes, I'm not sure we're ever going to see anything really shift in a positive way.
I agree.
I very much see it as a part of my job when somebody has, meds that they're on to triage these meds in terms of like, don't ever skip this one. Like the fact that that's a well-practiced skill that I have developed over time of reassuring and telling them, okay, if any of these on this list has to go, this is the one that goes. Like that is something that I've practiced many, many, many times. And it's like,
sad.
Yeah, that's curious, but it's still trying to prioritize their health. And if they're, going to limit meds, at least they're not doing it willy-nilly as part of, my obligation to trying to keep them safe is like, yeah, it's something that we do on the regular, especially in the hospital setting. It's a common problem that we run into.
Well, and to flip it on its head, the other big issue in drugs in America is supplements and vitamins, right? This totally unregulated market. Nothing's FDA approved. Everybody's selling whatever they want and saying it's whatever they want at costs that are ridiculous. Patients, I'm sure all of us have been asked, well, which brand do you recommend for the vitamin C or this or that? I don't, whatever's cheapest. That's what I always say, because there isn't one that I think necessarily is better because none of it's regulated. And so the fancier bottles don't mean that it's any different than anything else.
And not to mention the fact that we're talking about an industry that is preying on very vulnerable people, because most of these individuals are in situations where they are not getting answers to the symptoms that they have, right? And so they're seeking alternative ways, which I am so open with my patients about having these conversations. However, it's a very unregulated sector of medicine where people are profitizing huge, like by the billions of dollars. What's interesting is that system preaches wellness. It's natural. It's, but at the same time, like cyanide is natural too, but I don't recommend people taking it.
Right.
So there's a balance that's needed here where we can recognize that, that we're just really creating expensive pee for
and kidney stones.
People and kidney stones.
Yeah.
And seeing liver function tests go up, seeing kidney function tests go up because as a result of taking God knows what, you don't know where it's coming from because it is completely unregulated. But it's a market that's really sad. And that's not to say that our system is not at fault for part of that, because our system has historically been very patriarchal. I am the physician, you are the patient. This is what I say, now go do it. And that system serves nobody. And I mean, the three of us practice evidence-based medicine, but we do it in such a way that opens up the room for discussion about safe practices and alternative options for patients where patients have been neglected or segments of people have been neglected, like women, right? The research that we have into women's health issues is so abysmal.
Totally. And I mean, to be fair, some of the supplement market has really come about because patients couldn't afford the meds they were prescribed. So it's like, oh, you can't, afford your insulin. Here, this is a pill that you can buy for $30 and it'll decrease your sugars. Well, no.
Right.
So, they've also profited off of the fact that Big Pharma has made it so difficult for patients to get their medicines that then these supplement companies come along and say, well, we're just as good. Do this. It's cheaper. But it's not, and it's not anymore. How many times have we seen patients where we've prescribed something and instead they're taking a supplement for whatever reason and they don't want to tell us.
Right.
And so, it's this fear of like, are you going to get mad at me? No, we want to have a conversation.
Well, and to have the patient feel some autonomy and control over their health, right? Like that is something that I like about those conversations, is to be able to, okay, why would we take this supplement? Like, kind of let's track it back to, well, what is the process that's happening for you in your body, and have a more a detailed conversation about the health problem that they're trying to fight. I'm always going to food as medicine, right? Like probiotics. I love probiotics. We have like probiotics in the form of a large Costco container of sauerkraut in our fridge. And I literally take a spoon and I take a bite of that. And that is very cost effective and still an excellent probiotic, right? Kimchi, that there are things that we can do and not have to go to Whole Foods and spend, $50 on a bottle of probiotics like this. That is like, yeah, exactly. It's like, yeah, you can just ferment some green beans in your fridge.
Yeah.
Alternative options that end up being more cost effective and, result in better health. And that's how our bodies were meant to take things too, right? Like you don't need 10,000% of every micronutrient every day.
Right.
You can just take it in small quantities as food, as that is how we have consumed our nutrients, historically. That's probably how we should keep doing it. So anyway, thanks for listening to my probiotic.
I usually recommend live after Jojo.
No, I'm not getting any kickbacks from sauerkraut or kimchi companies. I'll take it though.
Well, the other big thing in the drug arena is this idea of like rebates or coupons, right? So you get patients on a medication and they start to feel better. The medication's working. A great example of that has been weight loss drugs that have historically not been covered by insurance companies. And so we're not just talking about the GLPs like Contrave or like Wegovy and Mounjaro and Zepbound. Well, we're talking about like Contrave and Qsymia. And those oral pills are nothing more than the combination of two oral pills that have been around for a very long time, but just when put together, all of a sudden make a new drug.
Not dirt cheap.
That is not dirt cheap. But they give you coupons.
Right.
So here's your coupon,
This
but
is
your
enough.
coupon is only going to be good for at most 6 months,
Correct.
right? And so then patients start to see success and then they have to abruptly stop them.
Yep.
Or let's talk about how they purposely create dosing strategies that are different than the generic version so that you have to concoct this weird formulation of the drug in order to achieve the same results. And we see that both with Contrave and Qsymia, where you have these tiny dose of one and where, having to have a patient like open up the capsule, sprinkle half of it out, get about half of the phentermine and then put it back. And so there's ways in which we have to almost bypass the very rigged system to help our patients become successful because the system is not there for them. And so it's about following the money, right? And following to see where is all this money going? And it's going to fill the lines of shareholders. I mean, I'm not going to say this on camera because I don't remember exactly who it was, but there was a big CEO who said to a live audience, my responsibility is to my shareholders, not to the patients of this country.
Yeah.
And so, but when you talk about the PBMs, lobbyists become a huge influencer in the game.
Government. Lots
But
of conversations.
Yep.
most of these people are individuals that sneak their way in between the physician and the patient, and in a way, to some degree, can erode away the trust of that relationship because, and in all fairness, like I'll prescribe a medication and a patient will come back and say the pharmacy didn't get it. And when I call, the pharmacy's like, oh, we got it, but it actually needs a prior auth. It's like, well, can you tell the patient that? No, because we don't have the time to explain to them what the prior auth is. So, and heaven forbid a pharmacy do a prior auth.
Right.
Right? Yeah. Like that falls back on our shoulders because everyone knows that physicians are the face of medicine, right? We're the ones directly interacting with the patients. And so therefore we're the ones that they come with their pitchforks and saying, this didn't happen. And it's like, okay, well, it didn't happen because your insurance denied it, or
they'll say like, well, why did you prescribe this for me? It's not covered. The pharmacy said it's not covered. Why did you prescribe it? I don't know what's covered because it changes every 5 minutes. And so it's
or because that's what I want you to have.
Right.
And
it's
someone
the best
else
medicine for you,
it's
even
the
though
best
the
medicine.
insurance or whoever else has said, no, we're not going to pay for it. Doesn't mean it's not the best medicine for you. But it's a system that's rigged to make, again, it's an us versus them mentality of the patient feeling like nobody's really on their side. Even when we're trying to do our best to give them what we think is necessary, there's so many different places where the patient gets this response of, oh, no, your doctor's wrong. Your doctor's not doing it right. We still haven't gotten the prescription or the prior auth, or this is the wrong dose, or whatever the case may be. And it's simply, we want this medicine for our patient. Give them the medicine.
Please.
Well, I just ran into a situation like 2 weeks ago where I had a patient who I prescribed Norco for an injury, 5 milligrams of Norco, nothing crazy. Gave her 30 tabs. It got denied. Insurance only covered 15 tabs. It's like, then dispense the 15 tabs. Like, why do we need to waste the time going through a prior authorization? If 15 tablets are covered, give her the 15 tablets, and then she can choose to pay cash if she would like for the other 15 when they're at like 8 cents a pop. But point being is that there's so many barricades that are placed purposely by design in front of patients to prevent them from getting what they need, all in the sake of saving money for the insurance company and or making money on the back end. And so at the end of the day, physicians just feel like they're stuck in the middle. And the moral injury that it plays on our autonomy, the way our time is valued. There have been reports of insurance companies and their leadership saying, do whatever you need to do to make their life harder. And they're good at it.
They're very good at it.
It's extremely frustrating.
It's very frustrating to explain why someone needs insulin.
Yeah. So, I mean, the nice thing about, the hope, the good part of this conversation is that as autonomous physicians in this practice, we don't have to play by the rules of insurance. And that gives us the flexibility that many don't to do prior auths if it's going to give them the med that they need. We have the time to do it. We have alternatives that we have looked at through cash pay, which sadly 99% of the time is cheaper than with insurance. These are the differences that will actually allow our patient to get what they need, and it takes the onus off of them.
And the time to try to see, can we solve this problem in any way, shape, or form? Can we hit it to get you off of the med so you don't need it in the first place, right? Like that is what is so missing in our healthcare system. And where doctors probably do take a little bit of the brunt is we're so rushed that, writing a prescription to a patient is a faster way than to take the time and sit down and figure out, how are you sleeping? How are you eating, right? And really try to get behind the disease that we're facing here. Anyway, but to spend the time preemptively so that hopefully you don't even need any of this, right? Like that's always the hope.
And the supplements, I don't want to say nobody needs supplements. I love supplements, like in
Yeah.
proportion and not
in moderation and
Because-
intentionally,
Yeah.
tactically utilized.
like I love
Yeah.
magnesium as a supplement.
Yeah.
I recommend it almost universally
Yeah.
for sleep, for fatigue, muscle
Vitamin
cramps.
D.
Vitamin D is obviously important, necessary. There's never going to be someone I say no, don't take that. But so there are lots of options that we can use to get around big pharma and to get cash pay prices and potentially save patients a lot of money. So I think it's important that we have that option here. I mean, that availability to take the time with our patients and try and not only get them whatever they need as a prescription or a supplement, but also to try and take the time to figure out why are you on that med and how do we fix the actual problem so that you're, healthy and you don't need these meds.
And for those who didn't listen to our first episode, which shame on you, you should go and listen to it. But for those who didn't, Doctors Grove and Rishwain and I, we are in a direct primary care model. So we are in a model of care that allows us to have full autonomy of how we practice medicine, and we provide the time that patients really need. With same day, next day access and 30 to 60 minute appointment times. It allows us to have these conversations with patients. And I think that the other side of this that we really can't not talk about that's become so important is how in America pharmaceutical companies have been allowed to advertise direct consumer marketing, which is insane to
My
me.
9-year-old just asked me if he needed a medicine on a commercial, and it was like, oh,
Mine will
my
sing the jingles.
goodness.
And I'm like, where did you get that from? Oh, okay.
I think I had moderate to severe Crohn's disease.
And while like I see the potential benefit, like I mean, you guys know this about me, that one of the things that is so important to me that I say all the time is that knowledge is power, right? And so I believe that as physicians, it's our job to be a conduit of information, to make people more knowledgeable about their body and to make them more knowledgeable about their overall health. And so I do love that they have more direct lines of access to understanding what some of these things are. But at the same time, like, there's a reason why you don't see generic drugs being advertised.
I was just going to say, but what's the point of these commercials when you're like, oh, that sounds great, yes. And then you go to the pharmacy, it's like, oh, that's $2,000. And you're like, well, then what is going on here? Why are you even advertising something that's so out of bounds for any patient? So it's always a joke because it's like these brand new, top of the line, phenomenal drugs, I'm sure. But what is the use if the patient can't afford it? There's no use. So you're just basically setting people up to see something they really, really want and think could really, really help and then can't have. And that's ridiculous. I don't understand the concept. So yeah. I think
it's a great strategy by them.
It is. I mean, but then when they can't get it, patients can't afford it, or then they haven't. Usually these really expensive meds have the program of the coupon card savings, exactly like you said, where you start it and you're like, this is the best thing. And then 6 months in, you're like, oh no, never mind. Can't afford it. Got to stop.
Or by design, the year rolls over and it's now January and the formulary has changed. And so now all of a sudden that drug's not covered and the patient is, up a creek without a paddle, like stuck. It's like, well, what do we do? And then not to mention patients who are on high deductible plans,
Right.
who now are forced to pay. I know, even HMOs.
Any insurance at this point is high deductible.
Wild to me that
Everything
HMOs
is
now
expensive.
have deductibles. And
It
I'm
is
like,
high deductible. Yeah.
Point.
What's the point?
I know.
I mean, it literally now is the most expensive piece of paper that anyone will ever own that has very little value.
Totally.
An insurance policy for healthcare.
Yeah. That's why in our model, our goal is to have patients have, yes, you should have insurance. Of course, we're not saying you shouldn't, but really truly find the lowest possible premium, because we're going to use your insurance as little as possible to take care of you and therefore not make you dependent on these ridiculously high deductibles. To me, that's the only way to get around this system. That is just getting worse and worse. It's a monstrosity at this point. So we really do need to prioritize getting the power away from the insurance companies, from the drug companies, and putting that power in the hands of the patients, and allowing us the opportunity to help them in the way that we can, where we're not dependent on those big companies.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we need R&D, like we need research and development. We need new drugs to be coming out. I mean, but they do have to be in a manner in which people can have them.
Yeah.
And it's not just the affluent people, right? I mean, we're talking about individuals who are in lower socioeconomic, and as in America, we reach this place where the wealth gap is greater than any other time that we've seen. That becomes even more important to be able to understand, how we make the system work for everybody. Because all of this conversation doesn't even begin to go into what happens when someone has Medicaid.
Yeah.
Right? Like
Or Medicare.
the TARs, which is similar to a prior authorization, a little bit different, but the TARs that have to be done for these patients who have Medicaid, and the list of drugs that are available to them is even smaller. It becomes just another point of inequity within the healthcare system that is really unnecessary when you're talking about what is potentially, I guess, if it's even still stands, is America being the wealthiest country on the planet. Like, how does that happen? Yeah. I want to know from both of your perspectives, what would a better system look like?
Oh my God. I mean, I mean, when facing these big questions, part of the reason, I joined you too and wanted to leave is we have to write our own system, I suppose. Like we have to just try something different. I don't think that, I do not envy anyone in really, really high up positions to try to restructure the healthcare system of America, because it's a hot mess. But we all got to take our little part in it and do what we can to try to advocate for ourselves and for our patients. And that's what we're trying to do here with the podcast, right? Like, just hold on to whatever little piece that you can and share knowledge and
empower the patient.
But really, it's I mean, there's a reason we call it a dumpster fire. Like, it's a big problem.
In an ideal world, if you're paying a large amount of money for an insurance plan, it would cover the medications you need. It should be that simple, really should. It's not, obviously. And so in order to control what we can control, which is not much, but for our segment of patients, we have the flexibility and the time to look at all the options on the table. What is affordable? What's not? Is a supplement appropriate? Is it not? Right. Patients bring in all of their supplements, and I'll literally go through and be like, yes, no, 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 yes. Yeah. And, it's like, you can take whatever you want. I'll never tell you no, but you just don't need to spend the money if you don't have to. And so, it's giving us that time to educate our patients on what's needed and really what's kind of for funsies, if you want to take it. And then they get to make the choice. And I think that that's probably the best gift we can give to our patients is their choice, right? Their power. Yes. And, here's what I recommend. Right. Your body, you tell me what you're comfortable with, and we'll make it happen as a conversation. Right. And I feel so good leaving a room knowing that I know if a patient's going to take that med or not. I know if it's covered or not. I'm going to be able to take care of my patients in the way that they deserve. Yeah. And that's, I think, the best we can ask for at this point. Because, I don't think any of us have the power to take down the entire pharmaceutical company. I'd love it, but we don't have it yet.
Well, and I think, to be fair, there are many models that America could model themselves after that are successful. So it's not that we don't have a lack of solution, because there are solutions to the problem. It's just that nobody has the courage to put patients over profit. Correct. And they don't have the courage to say that consumerism and capitalism needs to take a backseat to make America healthy.
Mm-hmm.
And anyone, current administration or not, that says to make America healthy again is going to be in removing red dyes or going to be in these sort of artificial ways of improving health, are feeding people nonsense. Because the way that we really get America healthy again is by putting the patient first and looking at the people who are making billions of dollars off of an unhealthy nation and saying that you no longer are going to be in that position. But
Let's take down the food industry next, guys.
because that's it. Well, as always, it is such a pleasure to sit down and talk with you guys. And we will be back now, officially monthly.
Routinely now.
Yes.
Routinely.
Every month.
Routinely.
For our podcast.
Yeah.
Love it.
Stay tuned.
Thanks, ladies.
Yeah.